Let me first take a moment and introduce our speakers. First, of course, is Marvin Krislov, the 14th president of Oberlin College. And one of the things I love about having an opportunity to introduce Marvin is he actually is a person who needs no introduction. And that's really kind of exciting. And I keep thinking about Marvin, that any time that there's an energy shortage anywhere, if we could just figure out a way to plug into Marvin, then the entire country would be able to be powered by the energy that resides in this man. So, go ahead. Why don't you? Do you want me to stand up? You can do however you like. A few minutes sitting however you'd like, and then I'll introduce the others.
Well, why don't I don't know. Maybe standing is good. Thank you, Chuck.
Stand up, Marvin.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you. I'm not that short. I actually have a little less energy than normal because I am a little under the weather, as you might hear. So I apologize that my voice is not what I would like it to be. But anyway, good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to see you and to be here. I also want to acknowledge my colleagues who are here. Dean Tim Elgren will speak after me, and then Dean Andrea Kalyn will speak after me. And Mike Franson, who is our CFO, is not able to be here, but some colleagues of his are here as well as some other colleagues. So I'm going to just talk for a few minutes, and then I know we all want to get to the questions, which is always enjoyable. So we are doing really, really well. Admissions are very robust. We're in very, very strong demand. I'm told that admissions already is getting a lot of interest from prospective students. We have a very strong faculty. What's going on is there is a generational change taking place, terrific young faculty joining us, and I don't know if it's official yet, but we will soon receive a grant from the Mellon Foundation will help us with bridge funding for faculty in the humanities and humanistic social sciences. So we are trying to be mindful of the generational changes that are taking place. We're working hard to provide first-class facilities for our faculty and students and to continue to be a leader in sustainability. So as you know, because you are here across the street, there is a new Gateway complex which will replace the Oberlin Inn, which will be built to the LEED Platinum standard. This is a key step forward from the Oberlin project, and we were able to do this with the generous help of philanthropy, some innovative tax, the new market tax credits, and other forms of financing. So it's very exciting, and it will make a huge impact both for us as a leader in sustainability and also for our community. And on the north end of campus, the Austin Knowlton Athletics Complex is a quantum leap forward for sports and health and wellness, and this is a big benefit to the college and the community. And we will be using this facility not only for 8 sports, but also for some of our high school teams as well. Our Oberlin Illuminate campaign is ahead of schedule. As of August 31st, we were at roughly $231 million, against our original $250 million goal. The most important priorities remaining are our goals for financial aid and scholarship, which is our #1 goal. We are hoping to raise $90 million in this campaign for financial aid and scholarships. That is our #1 goal, and we will be pushing very hard on meeting that goal in the remaining 2 years of the campaign. Second is a new health and wellness fitness center. And lastly is a renovation of hall and an adaptable theater. So there's lots of good news. But we also face challenges, and I was shown some of the questions that were sent earlier. Some of the concerns apply to all colleges. Some of them are Oberlin specific. But let me address affordability at the very beginning. We know that that is a challenge not only for our peer institutions, but also for Oberlin. We have a great history. It's part of our legacy of being open to all students from all backgrounds. And for me personally, access is probably my highest priority. Doing that is expensive. Oberlin is highly dependent on net tuition revenue to maintain our access. 80% of our students right now get financial aid. Financial aid will total around $61 million this year. $61 million. That is the equivalent of nearly 40% of our operating budget. The vast majority of our financial aid is funded from our endowment and from the support of people like you. We know that Oberlin is hard to afford for many families. We know that the sticker price is often surprising to people. We are finding ways to counter that. And of course, we are in the same boat as most other schools in our peer group. We also are looking at other goals, including maintaining our superb faculty, our facilities, and our commitment to other values, including sustainability. These are some of the things that we are looking at in the context of a strategic planning process. And I think you may have heard a little bit about that from our trustee panel earlier. One of our strategic planning goals is to find ways to keep us accessible and financially sustainable. And to that end, we will be having listening sessions. We've already launched a website, and you can participate in the discussion through a website. There are alumni representatives, as well as trustees, student, faculty, and staff. But we want your views and your opinions, and particularly your great ideas, because we know that to make Oberlin the kind of place for now and in the future, we need all the great ideas we have. A college and conservatory that produces people like Alison Bechtel, who just this week became our 4th MacArthur Fellow in 4 years. It takes a lot of support to do this. And we know that we're doing it right, not just by Alison Bechtel, because she's only one of 11 people that have been officially named geniuses by the MacArthur Foundation, but we know that there are many, many Oberlin alums who are doing extremely important work, innovative work, creative work in all sorts of venues. And we know that the value of what we do here, the liberal education as well as the conservatory education, and you throw into that mix a world-class art museum, wonderful science facilities, dedicated teachers, this is an extraordinary place. And whatever rankings, whatever articles are written about the value of education, we know that what we produce here is special. We know we have that special sauce. And sometimes it takes a lot of extra effort to continue to make that special sauce that we call Oberlin. So I'm really glad you're here. I'm really glad you're in the process of looking at alumni and the Alumni Council and the Alumni Association. We're looking at the big picture for Oberlin, and that's going to be happening over the next year and a half. And we welcome you to be part of that discussion, because we know that you share our commitment to this wonderful, extraordinary place that we call Oberlin. Thank you.
Thank you, Marvin. Next, it's my great pleasure to introduce Tim Elgren, the Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. Dean Elgren became Dean of the College on July 1. He came to Oberlin from Hamilton College, where he served as Professor of Chemistry, Affirmative Action Officer, and Associate Dean. His research efforts in biophysical chemistry deal with environmental toxins, and in his lab at Hamilton, he collaborated with students and co-authored papers with undergraduates in a number of publications. His dedication to teaching was acknowledged with the John R. Hatch Excellence in Teaching Award at Hamilton. Please join me in welcoming Tim Elgren.
Can you hear me? Thank you. I'll just sit here because I think my comments will be brief. So I think there are two firsts for me here. One, I've never spoken in a movie theater before, which is a beautiful venue. And two, I've never spoken to an audience that knows far more about the topic that I'm supposed to be talking about than I do. So that really is daunting, knowing your deep love for Oberlin, and that I've been here for 2 months. So I'll tell you all that I know about Oberlin College in my 2 months here. But it's been a terrific 2 months, and I'm so thrilled to be here and be working with an incredible senior staff that Marvin has assembled of really bright, creative people. So it's really a terrific environment for me to land. I've started off by meeting with chairs of departments, and so these are all the faculty that have inspired you and cajoled you and all the things that faculty do. Well, they do the same to me when they come to these meetings. They're very motivated to have me understand all the great creative work that is going on in their department and really the great student outcomes that they're so proud of. So it's been a terrific tour for me, and knowing so much about the iconic image of Oberlin coming in, the incredible conservatory, a world-class conservatory, the deep commitment to inclusion and access and social justice, the great museum, all these iconic views of Oberlin that the world knows about, the sustainability commitments. What I find in talking with faculty are the other things that I had never heard about. And so incredibly accomplished artists and well-regarded, revered art historians and incredible chemists who are promoting terrific work, biologists, computer scientists that have burgeoning classrooms, there's not enough room for the students. They create so much excitement around their work. And I can go down the list, but that list ends with neuroscience because it's going alphabetical. So I can't tell you anything about anything that happens after the letter N. So next time I report out, I'll start with psychology and tell you about psychology and physics. And although I'll tell you that theater jumped the list because they were concerned they weren't being heard. So it's really been it's been a great joy to meet these folks and hear about these concerns. And really, the remarkable thing for me is the consistency of incredible excellence on the part of the faculty. I mean, I knew that Oberlin was great. I didn't know you were that great. So that is something that you should all be incredibly proud of. The student outcomes are really extraordinary, that we still remain among the top baccalaureate origins for students going on to get PhDs. Some of the other really remarkable things that I'm learning is that 75% plus of our students engage in credit-bearing study-away opportunities. That's an incredible commitment to an internationalization that we hope they value. They also populate our language courses in great numbers, and it's not required. So that's really a unique aspect of this student body. I guess the one other part I talk about is the strategic planning, which for me coming into a community is really a great opportunity. And so being led by Marvin and Diane, but also the steady hand of Catherine Stewart. This is a great opportunity for me to hear from you and the trustees and the various constituencies of the college what you value most. And from my perspective, working with the faculty's purview is the curriculum. It really ought to reflect what it values most. And we'll start a conversation in the coming months that really is a broader consideration of the core values that the faculty share and how that gets expressed in the curriculum. And reflecting on how that looks from the student perspective, how a student would track through that curriculum and how they get inculcated in a culture of reflection and deep thinking and academic and performance pursuits that really reflect what we value most. So the faculty, I know, are excited about that conversation, and it tracks really parallel to the strategic planning process and complements the accreditation activities that we normally have to do. But for us, it really is one of those moments where we get to step back and think about what we value most. So I really look forward to that conversation. I look forward to working with you, and it's really a great joy to be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dean Elgren. Next, it is also my great pleasure to introduce you to Andrea Kalyn, Dean of the Oberlin Conservatory of Music. After serving for 9 years at the Conservatory's Associate Dean for Academic Affairs, Andrea Kalyn was appointed Dean of the Conservatory in February 2014. She earned her PhD in musicology from the Eastman School of Music, where her scholarship focused on American music of the 20th century. Her bachelor's and master's degrees, also in musicology, are from the University of Western Ontario. She holds an ARCT in piano performance from the Royal Conservatory of Music. Please join me in welcoming Dean Andrea Kalyn.
So I don't have Tim's excuse. I actually got through all of my departments this year. I didn't only get to N. I'm glad the conservatory comes before N. Along the lines of what Tim said, we're having a great year. We're off to a really great start in the con, and it's really exciting to be starting a year with strategic planning because it really is really forcing us to kind of actively as a group think ahead and have those conversations school-wide. Next year, 2015-16, is actually the 150th anniversary of the Conservatory. So this is a really important moment for us to step back and think about what a conservatory education is and what it should be as we present students going into, great artists going out into the 21st century. And you know, Oberlin is, I think, unique and particularly well equipped amongst conservatories in that this really is a phenomenal incubator of artistry. Part of developing great artists and having a point of view and a perspective in the world is not just the performance and the pursuit of really fabulous work as a performer and becoming the best that you can be at something, but it's also really thinking about the world, thinking about the way that you have value and that you add value and that you create change in the world, that you have an impact, and what your role as an artist is. And a big part of that, of course, is the intellectual pursuit as well. So we're continuing along in the kinds of things that we have been doing in trying to create professional connections for students and making sure that they have rich access to the full intellectual life that is Oberlin, that really gives them that deep perspective that comes back into their performance and gives them something significant to say in the world. And then also how they think about how they relate to audiences, how they relate to composers, how they work in the intersections of all of those things so that art lives in the world in a really significant way. I thought I would just tell you about one little thing as an example of kind of the approach and the way that we're thinking about this. So last year was the first of our American Roots residency. And American Roots is not a major at Oberlin. We don't have any mandolin majors. But we had the Punch Brothers come on campus. And that was a really extraordinary residency that actually caused us, really highlighted the things that we think about and what we focus on when we think about training classical and jazz performers in this world. So in that residency, 3 weeks of a bluegrass band on campus, what became evident was that this particular group is all about quality and the pursuit of doing what they do at the highest level. And so they have great technical skill. They work deeply with, they think deeply about their artists. They work incredibly as a chamber group and as an ensemble. They have a huge and vast musical curiosity about music and about the world and about all of these sorts of things, the intellectual environment as well as the musical environment. And genre became really secondary. And sometimes in conservatories, we sort of put genre first. And really what we're doing is training people to be the best that they can be in a way that has resonance in a world that has impact. And so this residency was really wonderful for our students and our faculty to come together in new ways that are perhaps wouldn't have quite so easily happened even in just a classical or jazz realm, but to come together with students and faculty from across the college, to build community around music, and to think again about those core elements that are so critical to how we think about training musicians. Again, that sort of commitment to quality, but really, really thinking about what we do and how we do it at the highest level and how it actually resonates in the world. So it was interesting to move out of genre and really underscore the central principles that are part of how we build artists. So we also, like Tim was saying, are really stepping back and looking at our curriculum this year, really thinking how our curriculum reflects our particular philosophy about the place of art and great art in the world, and how we at Oberlin can educate students and really train great musicians in a way that goes beyond just their instrument or their voice and actually has great resonance in the world. So it's a great year ahead. We look forward for you hearing some of this, and we hope that you pick up on some of the performances through streaming. I think you know that we stream most of our concerts, so we hope that you'll take advantage of that and get to see these students doing their work throughout the year. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Andrea. And now before we begin the questions here, as you all know, in the time leading up to this weekend, we sent out notices to all of the alumni asking them if any would like to submit questions that they'd like to have answered. And because this is being taped and will be distributed to the alumni body, several people actually submitted questions. So to pose two of the questions that came in, I want to turn the floor over to my predecessor, the always elegant Empress Jackalaka Hughes.
Thank you, Chuck. I'm actually here to provide color and support to Chuck and Marvin. So the first question is...
That was good. That was good.
From
That was good. That was awfully good.
Okay, so the first question is from Roy Tamura, class of 1978, and Deborah Jacobs, class of 1972. They ask what Oberlin is doing to attract students from all economic backgrounds.
Well, let me take a crack at it, and I think we also have Tama Beta here, I think, from admissions, or maybe Jill Medina. Someone here? Someone here? Okay. So this is a very high priority for us. We partner with the Posse Foundation, for instance, in Chicago, and we have a complement of Posse students every year. We also partner with the Questbridge group, which is a talent identification group throughout public high schools in America. We also work in this community where we give free tuition to every qualified graduate from Oberlin High School. We also work with hundreds and hundreds, as I understand, of community-based organizations throughout the country. And I myself am going in a couple weeks to Houston, and we're talking to people from all sorts of groups, and public schools and charter schools, as well as private schools. So this is something that we set as a high priority. We do meet 100% of the need of every student admitted. And that is a high priority. And as you heard in my discussion, we do give a lot of financial aid. I don't know if this was addressed earlier, but let me just take it on. I know there was some concern about the New York Times rating. Is that something that was addressed earlier?
Yes.
Do you feel you need any more information, or you're content? You're content. You're content. Okay, fine. There you go. We are so committed to this, and again, this is our #1 priority of the campaign. The best thing that we can do is make sure that we not only continue to attract highly qualified students from all backgrounds, but that we have the financial resources that we can afford to provide the support they need. One of the things we'll do, and I will stop in a second, is we're working on providing more paid internships for students as well. And we just got a major grant from the Great Lakes Loan Association to provide paid internships for students. And that's something else, so that it's not just identifying and bringing talented students from all backgrounds, but supporting them. We have programs to provide research opportunities. We have, I'm very proud to say, and Catherine Stewart and her team have helped us get there, as well as the entire faculty. Now we have a record 6-year graduation rate for Oberlin, 88%. And this is part of the mission, too. So we not only bring talented students here, we support them, and we get them to graduate and to have wonderful experiences in all sorts of areas.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
And the second question is from Derek Gay, class of 1997, and he asked, what actions around diversity and inclusion have been implemented in the past year?
Well, again, I'll take a crack, but Andrea and Tim, you are welcome to jump in on this one. So diversity and inclusion is at the core of Oberlin's mission. It has been since its founding. And we have done and continue to do a lot, both on the student side and on the faculty side. I think Tim and Andrea would tell you that we feel we can do even more on faculty recruiting. That's something that is not always easy to do, and we are focused on it. On student body diversity, we are very committed to that, and we continue to enroll a very diverse group of students. I also think we want to make the climate on campus one that is a positive and comfortable one for students from all backgrounds, including students from different socioeconomic backgrounds, different religious faiths, different nationalities, and so forth. And so we have very strong programming, the Multicultural Resource Center. We have also done something that is a first. We created a position, a special assistant to me for access, diversity, and inclusion. And Meredith Raimondo, who is an associate dean, has stepped up to take that. It's also because, frankly, one of the issues that we've needed to address, as of all campuses, the role of sexual misconduct on campus, and trying to create a safe and healthy environment for students in that regard as well. So diversity inclusion in its broadest sense is what we care about, and I think that we're working very hard. Dean Estes has spent enormous amounts of time and does a wonderful job in trying to make this a welcoming community. I think it is inevitable that when people from different backgrounds come together as part of the educational process, there will be conflict and disagreements. And frankly, I think that's at the core of our educational mission. Our goal as educators is to make sure that people have those discussions and those experiences in a way that will help them grow and develop as human beings. And that's what we're really about here. Andrea,
I can add a little bit. Couple programs that we're starting. One, Steve Volk and Allison Williams are starting a program that had been pioneered at Bryn Mawr, in which students are trained to be observers in a faculty member's classroom. And that partnership allows a faculty member to work with that trained student to talk about what the objectives are for that classroom, and then get feedback as to how that student perceived that person's achieving those objectives or not. And so the model is a really successful one, particularly for the student who becomes, their reporting is, far more engaged in his or her learning after that experience. So they really take ownership of the activity of being engaged in the classroom. So this relates to these issues in that part of the issue is helping faculty gain capacity and comfort in dealing with culturally sensitive issues in the classroom. And so helping students gain comfort in working with faculty to gain that comfort and build that capacity is part of opening a mutual, supportive, generous dialogue between them around the classroom activities. So that's one of the ways that it's starting. That pilot program is starting this fall, actually in just a couple of weeks. Another is recruiting students into pre-matriculant research experiences where students, what we know about success and persistence is that it starts by making connections with faculty members and with each other, and by confronting a persistent narrative of a sense that they don't belong. And so when that narrative gets ignited by a difficult situation on campus or some bad results in a classroom, a bad test exam or a poor grade on a paper, it ignites that narrative that really is a narrative that carries them through to underperform and even not persist. So one of the goals is to build these relationships right out of the gate, and particularly in areas of STEM education and environmental studies, where first-generation students and students of color are very much underrepresented and oftentimes don't succeed and persist. So those are just a couple of initiatives. With respect to faculty recruiting, my first meeting with the faculty was just a week or so ago, and we're just starting our faculty hiring season. And so really to make it clear to them that I'm working with the faculty committees to work at the front end of this process, because it all starts with the job description. And so as long as we stay so firmly embedded in subdisciplinary representation, we won't start to make advances in diversifying the faculty. And so to get a strong message that's where we're going to start the conversation, and to have our committees embrace that model and start working with departments to write job descriptions that will give us broader, deeper pools of candidates and allow us opportunities to hire really extraordinary candidates. So those are three things that we're saying.
Yeah, and I can tell you about a couple of things in the conservatory also. So one of the great things this year is we hired Chris Jenkins as a new assistant dean in the conservatory working with student academic affairs. Chris is a young violist who went on to do graduate work in international relations. He worked with the Sphinx Performance Academy for many years, and actually came to us most recently from Ramallah, where he worked with the Barenboim Said program there. So Chris has a really phenomenal background, and his charge is to work with Mary Kay Gray, who is our Associate Dean for Student Academic Affairs, to make sure that all of our students have really great academic support. But he's also looking at things with a lens of making sure that we have great support for our faculty as well as for our students on issues of diversity and inclusion. Big part of that, for his initial work so far, he's only been here a couple of months also, has been to make sure that he's developing relationships and connections across the campus. Sometimes the conservatory students have trouble getting outside of Bibbins or Robertson, where they're rehearsing all the time. And so we really want to make sure that they're tapped into the full resources of the college, particularly on issues like this. And so we've started holding multicultural resource center hours in the conservatory. We just had a welcoming kind of open house last week for that, and that's really terrific. The resource center has somebody coming over and doing office hours, and Chris has been working with them, and just all of the student academic support and different groups on campus to make sure that our students are really, really well connected. So we're really excited to have Chris on board, and that's, I think, helping a lot. The other thing is our students. We've had a lot of conversations with students over the last year about issues of diversity and inclusion, and we helped reinvigorate a student council. This is something that had happened in the conservatory a number of years ago, but they had sort of come in and out of existence, and they weren't chartered. They reinvigorated their charter, and they expanded that charter to include issues of diversity and inclusion. And so they're having very regular discussions with us, looking at things like how do we program the artist recital series, how do we bring in workers, how do we bring in performers, how do we set up residencies, all of those sorts of things, so that we're having really great conversations, and they are having conversations amongst themselves and with faculty, to help faculty understand different ways that they can help all of our students feel deeply welcome and feel deeply part of it, so that we're not tied to kind of notions about genre and sort of areas and departments, that we're really thinking collectively as a whole in diverse communities. So those are two examples of, I think, really great discussion in this area.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, now the moment you've been waiting for. This time, for those of you some of you have been waiting for this, maybe not these folks, but now is the time. If you have questions, please come forward. There are microphones on either side, and I'd like to remind you all that this is a time for questions, and if you have a question for our panel, if you would please state your question in the form of a question, it would be most useful. Thank you very much. So first person, go ahead. And please identify yourself by name and class year.
Hi, I'm a little short for this. My name is Hadley Iliff. I'm class of 2009, and I'm a member of our class that's lucky to have a job, but I do know a lot of Oberlin graduates from my year and others that don't have jobs or are having trouble finding jobs that aren't coffee shops or restaurants or things that aren't really what they want to be doing. So I know that for the upcoming graduates of Oberlin, that's going to get even more difficult, because there are more people with college degrees who are looking for the same kind of jobs they are. So if you can talk to kind of how you're trying to help students get the extra internships and job experience that they need to qualify for jobs like the ones they're looking for, that would be great.
So how much time do we have?
I know it's a hard question.
No, I mean, this is my quest, and we have really been very focused on this. So it starts, of course, with students actually saying, I want to think about getting a job. And that's actually a really important first step. And frankly, sometimes the Oberlin experience is so intoxicating and so immersive that folks just don't want to really think about it until their parents make them the day after graduation. And I actually think that there's a way to balance the exciting transformational experience that we know and love here at Oberlin with thinking about the future. And we want to do that on two fronts. We want to do that with some notion about curriculum and how a program of study actually might lead to either a capstone project or something. And this is something the Conservatory does very well, but we're doing even more, as Andrea will tell you, and through work such as the Creativity and Leadership Program that enforces that. And we're also doing it in arts and sciences as well. But we also are trying to make the Career Center, and I don't know if Richard's here, more a part of students' experiences from the beginning. And if anybody has a great name for the Career Center, we're open to it. I think at one point Richard considered something like the Future Center or something like that, and it just sounded too new agey, and we thought it would be, alienating to people. But we actually are trying to talk to students reasonably early about winter terms and how winter terms fit into the program, as well as summer internships. We are increasing funding for summer internships through the grant I mentioned earlier. The class of '65 is dedicating a portion of its gift. I have offered, this is the second year running, to meet with seniors to talk to them about their options, but particularly what I'm trying to do is suggest people in the broader Oberlin community that they can connect with, and we have a group of alumni who are eager and anxious to see them. We're going to be having a new website that Danielle Young can tell you all about, right, Danielle? Where is Danielle? Danielle, where are you? Okay, well, she'll tell you about it. In any event, the President's Advisory Council, we have two groups, one a networking group, networking mentoring group, another is the entrepreneurship group that are very focused on these types of issues, but we are trying to unleash the power of the Oberlin alumni to help students make this step. But frankly, I also think there needs to be a shift in the way students are thinking about their years here, not to take away from the liberal education or the conservatory education, but to think how winter terms, summers, and maybe even term time experiences can connect. And it's okay to talk about the future. And I think that this is something the faculty need to be part of, but I also want to unleash this power of the alumni to really make this a real familial effort. And I agree with you that it is concerning. I'll tell you, the students that I know that really have taken it seriously and have worked are able to get really interesting jobs. They may not be the perfect job in their mind, but they are able to get jobs. There are jobs out there, but you have to work at it. And that's the message that we are trying to deliver in a kind and supportive way, but also to try to nudge students to think about these things. Anyway, Tim, Andrea?
Yeah, I'll just jump in. So one of the ways that we work to really start this kind of thinking, is to, from the curricular perspective, is to think about, we have this great access to this phenomenal education at Oberlin, these amazing 4 years, this real incubator of all of this sort of thing. But how does that live in the world beyond Oberlin? What do you do with it? Sort of, so what, right? What do you do with this phenomenal education that you have? And if you can start thinking like that, then what we try and do is build in, both through the curriculum, our approach to the curriculum, how we put it all together, and how we create opportunities around the curriculum in co-curricular ways, either through winter term, whether it's through Creativity and Leadership, and now Launch U. However these things are, tours, things that we do in the conservatory, all of these kinds of programs, how do you create these links to the outside world so that students have actually opportunity to practice, kind of to imagine what they're going to do with this education and practice it, whether it's outreach, whether it's working in the Bonner Center, whatever it is. All of these are links to a life beyond Oberlin. And those have huge power and cycle back into how you approach your education as well. So it's a multifaceted endeavor, I think, things that are very specific and focused, like internships and so on, and also just an approach to thinking about your education and how that lives on. And then, the other thing I will just throw in is a sort of plug for Launch U, which is the entrepreneurship platform, launching off part, that has been started by the President's Advisory Council, and that picks up on the Creativity and Leadership Project. One of the real thrusts of that was to create additional support for students beyond graduation and to link with alumni, to provide support and also to link with more seasoned alumni who can help you get to that next step. And so these are things that are just really fundamental to how we think about this. We want to give you our students 4 phenomenal years, but it's 4 phenomenal years with a point. And the point is to create change and value in the world. So we're building it in lots of different ways.
Other questions? Surely there are other questions. Here comes one now.
My name is Bart Harrison, class of 1951. I think it was approximately 2 years ago that the Oberlin College solar array was kicked off with great enthusiasm. And I would like to know, one, if when the sun is out, is it working? And two,
One day.
what percentage of the college's power needs are being provided by the solar field?
This is where we need to phone a friend. I'm not sure which friend. Ron, are you my friend? Ron Watts, our former CFO, who's continuing to work for the college and a wonderful, wonderful citizen, and he's going to be my friend.
Come to the mic, Ron. Please come to the mic. Welcome back, Ron. It's good to see you again.
Good afternoon. Yes, the solar array completed is in its second year, is producing approximately 3 million kilowatt hours a year. Oberlin uses about 18 million, so that is basically, I believe, the 8% of total Oberlin, or city of Oberlin, and that is 12 to 15%, I believe, of total Oberlin College usage. The entire electric is put into the Oberlin grid and stays in Oberlin, Ohio. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
Other questions?
David, I see my friend David Orr is here. Does David want to be my second friend?
I think Ron covered it.
Okay, great.
It's a goal many aspire to.
Another question. Bert Ahern, class of 1963. And President Krislov, you mentioned your first priority, which we are, I know, all happy to hear about, is improving access. And I was a little surprised when the Washington Monthly rankings came out recently about social mobility, and Oberlin was 122nd. And I realize, as you identify, that money is one way in which alumni can help, particularly gifts that go to scholarship, need-based funds. But are there other ways in which alumni can help? Help students recognize that Oberlin is, in fact, an access, a place to which they can come and succeed. I think many of us would be eager to help, even if our pockets aren't very deep.
Well, absolutely. I mean, you're here, so you're helping by being here. We welcome the support of alumni in terms of recruiting students, and I've been waiting for the moment. Ben Jones asked me to do this. This is our new view book. We heard you. It says, "Think one person can change the world," and so it's a new, old look in some ways. It's picking up on a theme that really resonates, and I think that this is something that actually speaks to the impact of Oberlin. It may not be that all of our students go on to make enormous salaries. We hope some of them do, and we hope that they give back when they do make those salaries, but all of you can help in very concrete ways. You can help us by spreading the word, by recruiting students, by helping them as they navigate their way through college and beyond. And everything from winter term, providing housing, providing leads on internships. If you work for a government or a nonprofit agency, many students want to work there, as well as more for-profit ventures as well. I think that there are also ways in which you can contribute ideas as part of the strategic planning process and other ways. But I think one of the things we're working on, and I'm really excited about what Danielle and Chuck and other members of the leadership are doing in terms of trying to drive our Alumni Association to become even better. We all want to be better, and the Alumni Association should be the very best it can be, and we want to create the sense of vitality in our various communities about the relevance, continuing relevance to Oberlin. And things like the entrepreneurship initiative is very powerful. We have a program called Business Scholars, where we connect students with people in business, law scholars, health scholars. So there are a lot of different ways in which alumni can help mentor our students and support them. in ways that are immeasurably valuable to them. So we thank you for that.
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Pfister, class of 57. At risk of becoming a single topic advocate, I'd like to ask, well, let me describe. My class was the last class that had an ROTC program. We made that as a political statement in 1953 and 1957 when we graduated. That was the last class of ROTC. Have you considered the possibility of inviting the military instruction back to campuses in ROTC to provide diversity, job opportunity for doctors, lawyers, financiers, infantrymen, tankmen, intelligence, political military contributors, so that Oberlin is part of the national dialogue that makes the political military decisions?
Thank you for the question. I know that I actually have, from my previous job, some very, very positive connections with the military, because the military weighed in on the whole question of student-body diversity in the affirmative action cases, and in some ways may have tipped the balance, because the military is the most integrated institution in America. So there are some really positive aspects of the military, and I think we can learn from them. I will say this: I think the military does recruit on campus, not necessarily in a big splashy way, but I happened to notice the other day that I think it was the Marine Corps did have a recruiting, and Catherine's nodding. And so there are students who avail themselves of that. I have talked to students who would be interested in bringing ROTC back. I said I thought it would need a campus discussion, and I encourage them to have that discussion. There are certainly students who have been and continue to be in the military during their time here or connected with the military. And I think every year there are a small number of students who go on to join the military for some of the reasons you cite. I think if we were to think about ROTC, there would need to be a campus discussion. I think it would be one that would need to involve faculty as well as students. And I don't know what the outcome would be, but I think that it needs to be something that, frankly, the students and faculty need to talk about, and it would need to be that kind of a discussion, I think.
Come on, folks. We got time for one more question maybe after this.
Hello, I'm Ryan Brazel, class of 2005. We heard in the earlier trustee forum that one of the concerns of the Board of Trustees is online education. And so I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what conversations are happening at Oberlin around online education, and whether, if any, decisions have been made about what path Oberlin should take.
Could I turn that to you?
Sure, why don't I handle that? In the 2 months since I've been here, I think it's such a rich environment because there's so much experimentation happening, and one of the issues is that everybody wants to provide, but nobody wants to pay for it. And so when we think of this as a money-making operation, it doesn't feel like that. But from my perspective, I think what it does feel like is a moment of great opportunity for experimentation. And so when we think about the notion of a blended class and how we could use our time better in the classroom, so now you could potentially post the video of the lecture from a scholar of world fame to discuss issues that they could do it at such a sophisticated level that we couldn't hope to. And so to have an expert speaking on particular topics, of course the danger is that just like not reading the textbook, they wouldn't watch the lecture either before they came to class. But the power of that environment is that you can have that kind of conversation so that we can use the time in the classroom in a much more proactive way in terms of drawing students out into a conversation. And I think that's one of the real challenges is not just the online opportunities, but something we get pushed on regularly from from some of the foundations is to think about the ways in which modern cognitive science is going to inform the way that we teach. So clearly our pedagogical methodologies are lagging significantly behind what we now know about how students learn. And so if we can, what I would hope is that, I think it's captured best in the MIT strategic plan, where they talk about launching a period of bold experimentation. And so that's the kind of environment that I hope we create for our faculty and our students, is that we really view this period as an opportunity to explore. There are great opportunities to partner with foreign universities and have that facilitated through distance learning. And so I don't know that there certainly are a host of issues related to online courses for credit. And so that's a whole nother can of worms that maybe my colleague Andrea would like to.
Absolutely. 'Cause that's all we do in the con. Yeah, so I think that the discussion about online learning and technology in the classrooms becomes really polarized between those two models, right? It's this sort of sense of the MOOC and something else. And really, it's more nuanced than that. The discussion has forced faculty, all of us, to really step back and say, okay, so if we think about technology as a huge tool, right, sort of the pen of the 21st century, then how can we use it to amplify what we do? How can we do things differently? As Tim said, how do we think about how students learn? How do we think about different ways in which we teach? Can we sort of challenge our models? And what are the things that we can do extraordinarily well that we need to do? What do we take advantage of in this kind of environment? How do we make it this place for bold experimentation, this incubator of all of these things that we want our students to do? So, one of my colleagues, we were talking the other day, actually in the course of strategic planning, and he said, well, nobody in however many hundreds of years has improved on the model in teaching music of a one teacher, one student in a room. And that's true for certain types of things. But the question is, are there other things that we can amplify and do differently in addition to that? So we have a distance learning room now. We've been experimenting, our faculty has, with master classes in Sydney, Australia, which gives us, as Tim says, sort of access to a broader world that wouldn't be feasible in other ways. Do we think about flipping classes? Do we think about how students really learn and how we use lecture time versus in-class discussion time? Do we think about technology for ways of integrating performance and analysis? All of these kinds of things. So I think it's really, we have to think sort of beyond this kind of two models. Technology affords a great nuance, and it's a tool to be seized, but it isn't a sort of magic bullet that means we throw out everything else. It just forces us to really reflect on what we do and the best mode for getting our students to learn the things that they need to learn to have wonderful lives beyond Oberlin.
I think I just say that I think most people in higher education, where's Ryan? Oh, you've disappeared. Think
back
that
there.
technology, as Andrew and Tim indicated, can be very beneficial and can supplement in-person instruction. And certainly, we know, for instance, the language lab is doing exciting things with technology that it couldn't, we just can't afford to have all the languages taught. And so this is very helpful. But we don't really think, the folks that I've talked to in higher education don't really think it is, at the end of the day, going to be a big cost saver. In fact, if anything, it's probably going to increase costs, but it may improve the quality. And so that's the discussions that we need to have. But as Andrea suggested, also may be a way in, and Bill and Bill Barlow and Ben Jones and others have been talking about ways in which we can push out the Oberlin message to other audiences, including alumni who aren't going to be here for classes. So there may be opportunities not only for our full-time students, but for others to have some of the Oberlin experience in ways that could be beneficial. But again, this is probably going to be something that will actually increase cost rather than save cost.
Can I just pick up one last thing? The other thing I would say is that, faculty, I can assure you, are not reactive to this. It isn't a sort of, we're not MOOCs and we're not going to be MOOC. I think faculty really are, faculty on both sides in the con and the college have been really deeply interested in exploring ways that they can expand their pedagogy as well as their scholarship using technological tools. So, and that goes in a range of classes, whether it's flipping, whether it's using language studies, whether it's working with, doing master classes. across the globe. Or, just the way that we use textbooks, reducing costs for students in terms of textbooks by having online textbooks in the classroom. This is happening in our piano lab right now. We just redid this summer, so the students don't have to buy these ridiculous textbooks. They're right there, and it can change. And it affords a flexibility that we didn't have this time last year. So, the good news is I think faculty are thinking in really nuanced and creative ways about this. We've sort of moved beyond that sort of just extreme versions.
We have time for one more, and it's you.
Andy Harrison, class of 2002. So everyone in this room is really deeply invested, which is why we're here, in perpetuating the values and characteristics of Oberlin. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we're still being relevant to the people who want that education. So I guess everyone in here, even the youngest, are probably more than a couple years out from having graduated. So what are high school students looking for in a college education right now, balancing, because there's big discussion about what should post-secondary education look like, the cost, non-traditional, everything. How do we make sure that we're true to ourselves, but are also making sure that we are communicating ourselves in a way and presenting ourselves that people want to continue to come here, that it resonates to the next generation of students?
I'm going to offer Tom Abeta the opportunity, since he spends a lot of time with perspectives, as do we, but if Tom wants to generalize a little bit about this up-and-coming generation and what he's seeing and hearing, if that's all right, Tom.
Go ahead, say no.
See what happens tomorrow.
I missed the last part, but again, in fact, right now, our admission staff, we have a staff of 13 of us, and half of us are already out on the road. And so on average, we're visiting about 700 schools a year, a cycle that we're in, and we're visiting classrooms, and we're meeting with students and parents. And again, as we're out there, we're constantly looking at, obviously, kids that are looking for Oberlin, in the sense that, because I'm not about the hard sell, right, in terms of admissions. I think we just need to explain the type of community that Oberlin is. I think everyone's looking for that kind of rigorous academics, contact with faculty. It's easy enough to kind of list off a couple things, and then everyone's like, okay, well now tell me what's different about Oberlin. And I think what tends to resonate is that those students that do, they want to make a difference. So I think that when we start to talk about our commitment to social justice, kids that want to, not only learn about a topic, but be involved with it. And so when we start to talk about, like, gosh, there are students on campus now working in the SITES program where they're teaching Spanish in the elementary schools, or they're working through the Bonner Center, and there's our commitment to service and learning. I think students are obviously looking for more experiences where, they can, I was sitting on a working group last night about, the internationalizing Oberlin. And so to students, again, continually looking for what opportunities that I have to take my Oberlin experience, to another country, or what kind of experience am I having. I think the big part is students want an environment and a student body that's diverse, and so we continue to talk about that in admissions, about, you're going to be surrounded by students that come from large metropolitan cities, small rural towns, people coming from different, religious upbringings. That I think those are the things that tend to resonate with our students. And so the biggest issue, I think, is when students actually get to campus. I think that's when they're sold. And when they said, wow, I've heard about it, I'm seeing these great view books, I met with an alumni while I was out on the road, or when I was out in my town, I did an interview, but when I came to campus, right, that's really where it all kind of clicked. And so I think we're working harder and harder to try to get that experience where people are able to come, they're able to live in the dorms for a day and go to classes and really kind of feel, is this going to be the community for me? I think that we're working on ways too, though, to continually put that out there. I know that communications office is working hard to, the Stories Project, where people can go online and they can start to see that. And more than anything, I think a student, when they're out there, if they can see some glimpse of what they want to be in the person representing Oberlin, I think that speaks the loudest, because it really is that kind of word of mouth and saying, hey, I can really see you at a place like Oberlin. So, it's general, but.
That's helpful. Andrea, Tim, you want to jump in?
Sure, do you? Yeah, so I think this one person can change the world notion is really is relevant. You know, certainly it's, even when we kind of got rid of it, it certainly was a thing that resonated with the students in the classroom, or at least the kids in my classes. But I think if you think about what students are looking at, young kids, and I have a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. So if you think about what they're looking at, the big landscape beyond, you know, the world beyond, it's very uncertain and it's changing. And the question is, how can a school prepare you for that? How is 4 years not going to be just 4 years of high school, you know, sort of glorified high school? How is it really going to transition you to a life that means something, right? Which is really, really important. And so this question of think one person can change the world, I think actually is hugely relevant. I think Oberlin is actually uniquely positioned and really beautifully positioned to be immediately relevant to the issues in the world. We're sort of lucky in the sense that the ethos of the school that is evident in all of you is actually what's needed right now. You know, as a parent, when I look at wanting to make sure that my students are, my children, my students as well, but my two kids are really prepared to have significant lives that have meaning and that are fulfilling. I want them to be able to understand different perspectives. I want them to be able to pursue something as well as they can pursue it. I want them to know what quality is. I want them to know what quality of life is. I want them to know what other people think quality of life is. I want them to be able to feel confident. I want them to not be afraid of failing. I want them to have the confidence to try things. All of those are things that we build in at Oberlin. That's part of an Oberlin education and has been for, you know, for forever. So I think that kind of one person can change the world really does resonate with young students. And I think it still really resonates with high school students, at least those that I know. And then, you know, our challenge is to make sure, and our quest, our daily quest, is to make sure that we're building in these experiences that give them those kind of confidence. That kind of confidence and those kinds of experiences that make them not afraid of anything when they leave this place. You know, they may not know the answers, they may know that it's not going to be easy, but they're not afraid to try. They're not afraid to try and make a difference. And that's really the thing that Oberlin can do better than anybody.
Wow.